I thought I had everything. Successful investment firm, beautiful fiance, and a best friend I trusted completely. Then one morning, federal agents arrested me for stealing millions while my partner Julian watched with hidden triumph and my fiancée Maya stood by his side. They orchestrated the perfect frame-up, forged signatures, deleted emails, and fabricated evidence. But they made one fatal miscalculation. I'm a forensic accountant who understands money trails better than anyone. Now I'm building a trap that will destroy them both without leaving a trace of my involvement. They think I'm broken, but I've never seen more clearly. Federal agents storm through our investment firm's glass doors, badges flash under fluorescent lights. My mind races to understand what's happening. David Chen, you're under arrest for securities fraud and embezzlement of client funds exceeding $12 million. The cold metal of handcuffs clicks around my wrists. 3 years building this company gone in seconds. I look up, seeking explanation, and lock eyes with Julian, my business partner, my best friend since college. His face shows concern, but something flickers in his eyes, something I've never seen before. Triumph. As they lead me past the stunned faces of our employees, I catch a glimpse of Maya, my fiancée. She stands beside Julian, eyes red with tears, but she doesn't move toward me. Julian's hand finds her shoulder in a gesture suddenly too familiar. I didn't know it then, but that touch was the first confirmation of a betrayal months in the making. The evidence is overwhelming. Forged documents bearing my digital signature, complex offshore transactions routed through terminals I accessed, damning emails mysteriously deleted from my accounts but recovered from the server. A perfect frame. We've been tracking these transactions for months, the lead agent tells me in the interrogation room. The pattern suggests long-term calculated theft. I shake my head. I didn't do this. He slides photographs across the table. Screenshots of accounts I rarely access. Transactions I never authorized. My signature on documents I've never seen. Your partner was the one who alerted us, he says. Apparently he found discrepancies dating back 18 months. Julian. The pieces start clicking together. The late nights he spent fixing discrepancies. His concerned questions about my stress levels. Suggestions I take time off. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs. Maya's increasing distance. Phone calls that ended when I entered the room. The way Julian's eyes lingered on her when he thought I wasn't watching. My lawyer, a public defender named Sarah, reviews the case file with a grim expression. They've built a solid case. Your digital signature is on everything. The money trail leads directly to shell corporations connected to accounts you accessed. I didn't do this, I repeat. Then who did? She asks. 1 month after my arrest, Maya visits me in detention. Her engagement ring is gone. She sits across from me, keeping distance between us. Her eyes avoid mine. Julian told me everything, she whispers. How long have you been stealing? Was our entire relationship just a cover? I stare at her, finally, seeing the truth. You already know the answer to that question. Her eyes widen slightly before she masks it. That's when I know for certain. They planned this together. Maya leaves without looking back. Through the detention center window, I watch Julian waiting in his car. She slides into the passenger seat. His hand touches her cheek before they drive away. I never suspected. That's what keeps me awake at night. 3 years sharing my life, my dreams, my company with Julian. 2 years planning a future with Maya, all while they plotted my destruction. I had given Julian access to everything, our digital security systems, banking protocols, client accounts. I trusted him implicitly with both my business and my heart. I trace the timeline backward in my mind. The evidence suggests preparation dating back at least 9 months, long before any cooling in Maya's affection, long before Julian's discovery of financial irregularities. Sarah recommends a plea deal. 15 years could become 7 with good behavior. Fighting this means risking 25. But alone in my cell that night, something crystallizes within me. Not rage, something colder, clearer. My mind, trained to find patterns in financial chaos, begins working in ways I hadn't known possible. They thought they'd destroyed me. Instead, they'd stripped away everything except my greatest weapon, my intellect. I was always the quiet engine behind our success. Julian was the charming face, the networker, the one who brought in clients with his charisma. I was the one who understood the complex machinery of modern finance, the one who could trace money through digital labyrinths, the one who could build a perfect trap. I need more time, I tell your Sarah during her next visit. And I need to see the complete evidence file. She frowns. What are you planning? Nothing desperate, I assure her. Just thorough analysis. I am granted bail with house arrest and digital monitoring. My apartment becomes a command center for financial archaeology. Every transaction Julian made for the past 3 years gets mapped. His coffee purchases, gas receipts, dinner reservations, all cross-referenced against the timing of the fraudulent transfers. A pattern emerges. Julian's personal transactions create perfect alibis for himself while framing me. The elegant simplicity is almost admirable. But in focusing so completely on creating my guilt, he's overlooked something crucial. He's created a parallel shadow of his own involvement. I didn't realize until I lost everything how much I knew about Julian. His habits, his weaknesses, his predictable unpredictability, the way he always orders the second most expensive wine on the menu, the way he rotates between 3 different passwords, the way he keeps receipts for exactly 17 months. The first piece of my revenge slots into place. A seemingly innocuous question about unusual routing protocols used by shell corporations appears on an influential financial crime blog. The exact method Julian employed, an anonymous tip from a public computer miles from my apartment. I may be monitored, but my mind remains free, and I've never seen more clearly. 6 months into house arrest, my transformation is complete. The broken man they expect to see when monitoring my ankle bracelet, but inside I've never been stronger, never more focused. I convert my apartment into a command center. Financial archaeology becomes my new discipline. Every night I dig deeper into the transactions Julian thought were buried forever. With limited internet access, I work methodically. Julian's confidence makes him careless. He thinks I can't touch him from inside my electronic cage. He's wrong. My entire adult life has been spent understanding how money moves through the digital world, how it leaves traces, how patterns reveal intent. The skills that built our company are now being used to dismantle his perfect crime. I track Julian's personal credit card statements through subpoenas filed by Sarah. His morning coffee purchases, weekend getaways with Maya. What I find is illuminating. During critical embezzlement transfers, Julian created perfect alibis. 2. Perfect. The first breakthrough comes 3 months into my investigation. A transaction timestamp showing one of the largest fraudulent transfers occurred exactly 4 minutes after Julian purchased gas across town. Impossible for me to have executed. Possible for someone with remote access to my accounts. I didn't realize at first how methodical my revenge would become, how it would consume my waking hours, how it would transform my pain into something coldly precise. Julian's digital footprint tells a story. He accesses our company servers late at night, always after Maya leaves his apartment, always for less than 20 minutes, always using a specific VPN service. I catalog each instance, build the framework of proof, not for confrontation, for destruction. The prosecution has mountains of evidence, Sarah reminds me during weekly meetings. We need a breakthrough. I nod but say little. I'm not ready to share my discoveries, not until the trap is complete. Sarah grows frustrated with my silence. David, I can't defend you if you won't help me. I'm working on something, I tell her. Give me more time. Looking back, I understand her frustration. From her perspective, I appeared resigned to my fate. In reality, I was constructing Julian's. I create a dummy email account using a public library computer during a permitted medical appointment. Begin sending anonymous tips to financial bloggers about specific offshore routing protocols. The exact methods Julian employed. The financial world is small, specialized. Such specific questions attract attention from the right people. I remember the way Julian would dismiss my technical explanations during client meetings. "David handles the boring details," he would say with a charming laugh. "I focus on relationships." Those boring details are now becoming his undoing. The precision he mocked will be his destruction. My second breakthrough arrives unexpectedly. Reviewing old server logs, I discover fragmented data, showing I wasn't logged in during key transactions. My credentials were used, but geolocation data places my devices elsewhere. I forward this information anonymously to the junior prosecutor assigned to my case. Not enough to flip the investigation yet, just enough to plant seeds of doubt. The digital monitoring system on my ankle doesn't register the satisfaction I feel when the first article, questioning the prosecution's timeline, appears on a respected financial crime blog. My life becomes a careful balance of appearing defeated, while methodically building my case. I exercise daily, keep my apartment immaculate, present the image of a man accepting his fate while privately engineering Julian's. 4 months into house arrest, Julian and Maya announce their engagement on social media. Their happiness spills across my screen, her smile identical to the one she once directed at me, his arm around her waist. Their future built on my stolen present. I feel nothing. No jealousy, no rage, just cold certainty about what comes next. That evening, I execute my boldest move. Anonymous delivery of key evidence to a junior investigator I've identified as methodical and ambitious. The package contains records of Julian's personal expenses perfectly aligning with fraudulent transaction timings. Too many instances to be coincidence. The patterns are there for anyone looking closely enough. Julian's digital signature as distinctive as fingerprints to someone who knows what to search for. I was always the invisible partner, the one clients barely remembered after meetings. Julian was the face everyone recognized, the name everyone remembered. Being forgettable becomes my greatest asset. The quiet man rarely raises suspicions. 5 months into my strategic patience, Maya visits unexpectedly. Her diamond ring catches the light, larger than the one I gave her. Purchased, no doubt, with money meant for our future. "I'm worried about you, David," she says, standing awkwardly in my living room. "Julian thinks you might be planning something desperate." I see through her immediately. This isn't concern. It's reconnaissance. "Tell Julian I'm focused on a transaction from 2 years ago," I say carefully. November 15th, the Peterson account. She tries to hide her interest. Fails. "That's ancient history," she says dismissively. "Sometimes old transactions reveal new truths." I give her exactly what she came for. Misinformation about my defense strategy. That night, precisely as I predicted, Julian accesses old records to shore up his story around the Peterson account. In doing so, he creates new digital footprints connecting him directly to the fraud. Every step Julian takes to protect himself drives him deeper into my trap. Every precaution entangles him. Further, my revenge isn't loud or violent, it's architectural. I'm not building evidence against Julian. I'm creating a structure where the only logical conclusion is my innocence and his guilt. The countdown to my trial accelerates. 6 weeks remain, then 5, then 4. "We need to discuss plea options," Sarah insists during her weekly visit. "Not yet," I tell her. "Wait until 3 weeks before trial." She studies my face. "You've found something." I nod, but share nothing more. The trap isn't ready. Premature revelation would give Julian time to counter. I didn't anticipate how complete my transformation would become, how losing everything would clarify my purpose, how betrayal would sharpen my mind to a weapon's edge. Everything Julian and Maya took from me has been converted into the energy driving their destruction. The company, the relationship, the future, all fuel for what comes next. I continue building my case with mechanical precision. One evidence piece connecting to another, a perfect structure of truth that will collapse their carefully constructed lies. 3 weeks before trial, Julian and Maya buy a house. I see the listing online. 5 bedrooms, waterfront view, infinity pool. Everything we once planned together. The photos show Maya smiling on the front steps, Julian with his arm around her waist. Their social media overflows with congratulations. They've constructed a perfect life from my ruins. That night, I execute the next phase of my plan. The junior investigator I've been feeding information has quietly built her own file of discrepancies, timestamp conflicts, geographical impossibilities, financial patterns that point away from me. I've never worked harder in my life. Every minute not spent maintaining my cover of defeated compliance is dedicated to exposing Julian's arrogance. His fatal flaw was always overconfidence, believing himself too clever to be caught. I discovered Julian has been accessing company servers weekly, covering tracks only someone like me would notice. Minor edits to time-stamped files, subtle alterations to backup logs. Each change meant to reinforce my guilt actually creates new evidence of his involvement. Every step Julian takes to secure his position becomes another link in the chain I'm forging around him. Each precaution adds another layer to my revenge architecture. The trap is almost complete. I need only the final components, the decisive evidence that will collapse their carefully constructed reality. Looking back, I'm amazed at how patience transformed my approach. Before this betrayal, I prioritized efficiency, immediate results. Now I understand the power of waiting, of allowing your opponent to exhaust themselves fighting shadows while you build the real threat behind them. Sarah arrives for our weekly meeting with new determination. Trial is 3 weeks away. We need to discuss plea options now. Instead of arguing, I hand her a USB drive. This contains server logs proving I wasn't logged in during key transactions. My devices were elsewhere. Her eyes widen. How long have you had this? Long enough to verify its authenticity. There's more coming. The shift in Sarah's demeanor is immediate. From resigned public defender to awakened predator, she smells blood in the water. Why didn't you share this sooner? Timing, I tell her. Julian thinks I'm broken. I needed to maintain that illusion while building the complete case. 2 days later, Sarah receives an anonymous package containing geolocation, data from my devices during critical transactions, data proving I was across town. Evidence Julian thought was destroyed. Julian grows nervous. I can tell from his increasingly frantic attempts to contact former colleagues, seeking to shore up his story. Each person he reaches out to becomes another potential witness against him. Maya calls unexpectedly, her voice tight with controlled panic. David, what are you doing? Julian says your lawyer is making outrageous claims. I'm doing nothing, I reply truthfully. The truth is simply coming to light. There's been some misunderstanding. Her voice softens, becomes the one I once trusted. Maybe we could talk, clear things up. I feel nothing at her attempted manipulation. The woman I loved no longer exists, perhaps never did. I have your text messages, I say quietly. Planning this with Julian 3 months before my arrest. The silence on the other end is deafening. When she speaks again, fear has replaced the false warmth. What do you want? Justice. I hang up. The trap is nearly ready. Julian and Maya will spring it themselves. Julian's paranoia escalates exactly as I predicted. He begins moving money between accounts, preparing escape routes, classic guilty behavior that triggers additional scrutiny from investigators. 10 days before trial, the prosecution requests a meeting with Sarah. The evidence we've provided has created enough doubt to warrant discussion. I never expected how complete my victory would become, how thoroughly justice would align with revenge. The system I thought had failed me is now the instrument of Julian's destruction. Sarah returns from the meeting with barely contained excitement. They're reconsidering the entire case. The prosecutor has questions about Julian now. I nod. Good. This isn't just about reasonable doubt anymore, she continues. They're starting to believe someone else committed the fraud entirely. Someone did. The week before trial, brings the final collapse of Julian's carefully constructed fraud. The financial blogger I anonymously contacted publishes an analysis of the exact offshore routing protocols used in the embezzlement. Regulatory authorities launch investigations into several of the shell corporations linked to the stolen funds. Julian panics, makes the critical error I've been waiting for. He attempts to access and alter server backup files containing evidence of his involvement. The access triggers alerts I secretly installed months ago, alerts that notify both the firm's security team and federal investigators. I didn't appreciate at first how Julian's arrogance would become his downfall, how his belief in his own cleverness would blind him to the trap closing around him. Maya attempts to contact me repeatedly. Voice messages alternate between threats and tearful pleas. I save each one as additional evidence of consciousness of guilt. The day before trial, Sarah bursts into my apartment without warning, her face flushed with triumph. The prosecutor wants to meet now. They found something big. At the prosecutor's office, the lead investigator lays out what they've discovered. Julian's personal banking records show parallel transactions mirroring the embezzled funds. Transactions made within minutes of the fraudulent transfers from locations near the IP addresses used. We've been building a case against the wrong person, the prosecutor admits. I maintain my composure, express appropriate surprise. Inside, I'm watching the final pieces of my revenge lock into place. We'll need your cooperation, the prosecutor continues. Your expertise to unravel what actually happened. Of course, I reply. Whatever you need. The trap I've spent months constructing has sprung perfectly. Julian built a case against me using financial evidence. I've used that same evidence to reveal his guilt. The symmetry is satisfying beyond words. My trial is postponed indefinitely. Julian is brought in for questioning. Maya is placed under investigation as a potential accomplice. Their perfect life begins unraveling at accelerating speed. I never imagined how completely the tables would turn, how Julian's attempt to destroy me would become the instrument of his own destruction, how Maya's betrayal would lead to her own downfall. The system Julian manipulated to frame me now works with mechanical precision to expose him. Each piece of evidence he fabricated against me now reinterpreted through the lens of his guilt. His digital fingerprints suddenly visible everywhere. Justice arrives with perfect irony. Using exactly the skills Julian exploited to build our company, I've engineered his complete destruction. Not through fabrication or lies, through pure, meticulous truth. The day of my trial arrives. The courtroom hums with tension. Journalists fill the gallery rows. Financial fraud cases rarely attract this much attention, but $12 million in betrayal between partners makes for compelling headlines. Julian sits at the prosecution table. Expensive suit, perfect haircut, confidence radiating from his posture. He catches my eye briefly. The flash of superiority in his expression almost makes me smile. He still believes he's won. Maya sits 3 rows back. Designer dress, hair pulled into a severe bun. She avoids looking at me directly. Her hands twist nervously in her lap. The judge calls the court to order. Proceedings begin with opening statements. The prosecutor outlines the case against me with practiced precision. Digital signatures, offshore accounts, deleted emails, a perfect paper trail of guilt. I study the jury's faces. Their expressions show the expected reaction. Disapproval, judgment. They see a financial criminal who betrayed his clients and partner. I didn't realize then how dramatically the narrative would shift, how quickly judgment redirects when truth emerges. Sarah makes her opening statement with surprising confidence. This case is not about Mr. Chen's guilt. It's about a sophisticated frame orchestrated by his business partner, Julian Croft, with the assistance of Mr. Chen's former fiancée, Maya Winters. Julian's attorney objects immediately. The judge overrules. Sarah continues outlining our defense. The jury's expressions shift from certainty to confusion. The prosecution calls Julian as their first witness. He takes the stand with practiced ease, recounts discovering discrepancies in accounts I managed, his shock and betrayal at realizing my theft, how he reluctantly reported his findings to authorities. His performance is flawless, every word calibrated for maximum impact. The concerned friend forced to do the right thing despite personal cost. I watch him carefully. Note the subtle tells I've known for years. The slight adjustment of his cuffs when embellishing. The momentary eye shift when constructing rather than recalling. During the past months investigating his fraud, I've developed a new appreciation for Julian's skills, his charisma, his ability to command a room. The very qualities that made him valuable as a business partner now deployed against me. The prosecutor finishes direct examination. Sarah stands for cross. I notice a new file on our table. The anonymous package delivered this morning containing the final pieces of our counter-evidence. Mr. Croft, Sarah begins, your testimony suggests you discovered these financial irregularities through routine review. Is that correct? Yes. Regular quarterly compliance checks. And you were shocked by what you found? Completely. David was my best friend. Sarah nods sympathetically, then shifts tactics with surgical precision. Can you explain why your personal credit card shows purchases in London exactly when the largest fraudulent transfer was initiated from a London IP address? Julian blinks. His composure flickers momentarily. That must be a coincidence. And is it also coincidence that your ATM withdrawals perfectly align with the timing of 6 other fraudulent transactions? Withdrawals made within minutes of the transfers from locations near the IP addresses used? The courtroom stirs. Julian's attorney stands to object. The judge asks to see the evidence Sarah references. I watch the prosecutor examining the new documents, his expression shifting from confidence to confusion, then to growing suspicion as he looks at Julian. I never imagined the satisfaction of this moment, seeing Julian's perfect frame collapse in real time, watching doubt spread across the faces that minutes before were certain of my guilt. Sarah continues her methodical dismantling of Julian's testimony, each question revealing another layer of his deception, another connection between his movements and the fraudulent transactions. Mr. Croft, can you explain why server logs show Mr. Chen's credentials being used to execute transactions while geolocation data places his devices miles away from any access point? Julian's composure cracks visibly now. I'm not a technical expert. There could be various explanations. But you are an expert in financial systems. That's why you handled client relationships while Mr. Chen managed technical operations, correct? Yes, but... And as an expert in financial systems, you would understand exactly how to manipulate those systems if you had access to Mr. Chen's credentials? Julian's attorney objects again. Argumentative. The judge sustains, but the damage is done. The implication hangs in the courtroom air. I glance at Maya. Her face has drained of color. She stares at Julian with dawning horror. The realization that their perfect plan is unraveling before her eyes. Looking back, I'm amazed at how quickly certainty can dissolve, how rapidly judgment shifts when evidence mounts against previous assumptions. By mid-afternoon, the prosecution requests a recess to review new evidence. The judge grants it, extending the break to allow thorough examination of the materials Sarah has introduced. In the hallway outside, Maya approaches me, her confidence gone, voice barely above a whisper. David, please, I didn't know how far he would go. You have to believe me. I study her face. The woman I once thought I knew, planned to marry, build a life with. I feel nothing but cold clarity. The text messages between you and Julian planning my downfall say otherwise, I tell her. The ones from 3 months before my arrest. Her face pales further. Those were deleted. How did you... I'm very good at what I do, Maya. You both forgot that. When court reconvenes, the atmosphere has transformed. The prosecutor approaches the bench, requesting time to investigate new evidence that significantly impacts the direction of this case. The judge, seeing the shift, orders a 3-day recess. Additionally, he grants my immediate release from house arrest, based on the substantial new questions about my involvement. As I walk from the courtroom, journalists bombard me with questions. I say nothing. My silence more powerful than any statement. Julian is surrounded by his legal team. Their huddled conversation radiates panic. The confident accuser now fighting for his own credibility. I never expected revenge could be this methodical, this precise, not built on emotional outbursts or direct confrontation, but on carefully constructed truth that Julian cannot escape. Sarah drives me home. "That went better than expected," she says, understated. "It went exactly as planned," I reply. The next 3 days transform everything. The prosecutor's office contacts Sarah requesting a meeting. They want my cooperation in building a case against Julian. They've completely reversed their theory of the crime, she tells me afterward. They now believe Julian orchestrated the entire fraud and framed you. Because he did. They're also investigating Maya's involvement. Those text messages you recovered are damning. Julian attempts to flee the country, is apprehended at the airport with fake identification and $60,000 in cash. Another piece of my trap sprung perfectly. Maya calls repeatedly, leaves desperate, messages alternating between pleas and threats. I save each one as additional evidence of consciousness of guilt. I never anticipated how completely their lives would unravel once the first thread was pulled. How Julian's careful construction contained the seeds of its own destruction. The prosecutor formally drops all charges against me, simultaneously announces new charges against Julian for embezzlement, fraud, obstruction of justice, and attempted flight. Maya is charged as an accomplice. Her tearful protests of innocence contradicted by her own text messages, her own words mapping out their plan to take my company, my money, my future. The firm's remaining partners approach me with settlement, offers, restitution, partnership restoration, damage control for the firm's reputation. I accept their terms with one addition: complete cooperation with authorities in recovering all stolen funds, full transparency going forward. Justice arrives with perfect symmetry. Using exactly the skills Julian exploited to build our company, I've engineered his complete destruction, not through fabrication, through meticulous truth. The system Julian manipulated to frame me now works with mechanical precision to expose him, his digital fingerprints suddenly visible everywhere to investigators following my roadmap. My revenge isn't loud or violent, it's architectural. I didn't build evidence against Julian. I created a structure where the only logical conclusion was my innocence and his guilt. Julian's trial begins 3 months after my exoneration. The courtroom is packed beyond capacity. Financial crimes rarely generate this level of public interest. But betrayal between best friends makes for compelling headlines. I sit in the gallery, front row, directly in Julian's line of sight. Every day I wear impeccable suits, project calm confidence, force him to see the man who methodically dismantled his perfect crime. The prosecution's case is airtight, built largely on evidence I provided. Server logs, geolocation data, timeline discrepancies, financial patterns only. Someone with my expertise could have uncovered. Julian's defense strategy shifts daily. First claiming ignorance, then suggesting Maya manipulated him through their relationship, finally accusing me of planting evidence against him. I didn't anticipate the satisfaction of watching Julian's desperation grow, how his legendary charm would curdle under pressure, how jurors would see through his practiced sincerity. The prosecutor calls me as a witness on day 4. I take the stand with calm precision, answer questions with technical expertise that leaves no room for doubt, explain exactly how Julian executed the fraud and framed me. Could someone have fabricated this evidence against Mr. Croft? Julian's attorney asks during cross-examination. Theoretically, I reply, but they would need access to complex systems, spanning multiple institutions, banking records, server logs, geolocation data. The conspiracy would require dozens of accomplices across different organizations. The simpler explanation is that Julian acted alone, with Maya's knowledge. Julian stares at me with naked hatred. I meet his gaze steadily. Let him see nothing in my expression but professional detachment. I never imagined revenge could feel this clean, this righteous, not driven by emotion but by truth meticulously revealed. Maya testifies the following week. Attempts to portray herself as another victim. Claims Julian misled her about my guilt. Insists she only believed what he told her. Her performance might have worked if not for the text messages. Her own words planning my downfall with Julian. Discussing how they would split my ownership stake. Which clients they would keep. How they would explain my breakdown to our social circle. Looking back, I'm amazed at their arrogance. Their certainty that deleted messages were permanently gone. Their failure to appreciate my technical expertise extended beyond financial systems. The trial lasts 3 weeks. The jury deliberates for only 4 hours before returning with their verdict. Guilty on all counts. The judge denies bail pending sentencing due to Julian's previous flight attempt. As they lead Julian from the courtroom, our eyes meet briefly. The charismatic partner who built our business on charm while I handled boring details, now destroyed by those same details. Maya avoids looking at me entirely. Her separate plea deal includes testimony against Julian. 7 years reduced from her potential sentence in exchange for cooperation. Their betrayal of each other completing the symmetry of my revenge. The media portrays me as victim turned hero. The quiet forensic accountant who caught the real criminal through brilliant financial detective work. Profiles highlight my methodical approach, my technical brilliance. The very qualities Julian once dismissed as unmarketable. The firm's partners offer full restoration of my partnership stake, additional compensation for damages, public acknowledgement of my innocence. I accept with one condition, full transparency in all ongoing investigations. I never expected to reclaim my former life so completely. To have my reputation not just restored but enhanced. To emerge from betrayal stronger than before. The waterfront house Julian and Maya purchased with stolen funds is seized by authorities. Listed for sale to repay defrauded clients. I pass it occasionally, watch as the for sale sign gradually weathers in the salt air. A monument to their failed ambition. Maya attempts contact once more before beginning her sentence. A handwritten letter expressing remorse, claiming she truly loved me once, blaming Julian's manipulation for her betrayal. I read it carefully. Analyze her handwriting. The pressure points revealing tension. The slant indicating deception. Then I add it to my evidence file without response. 6 months after Julian's conviction, I visit him in prison, not from sentiment or closure, but to complete the final phase of my revenge architecture. The visitation room is sparse, concrete walls, metal tables bolted to the floor. Julian shuffles in wearing standard prison orange, his physique already showing the effects of confinement. The designer suits and perfect haircuts replaced by institutional uniformity. I didn't anticipate how diminished he would appear, how quickly his charisma would fade without the trappings of success, how ordinary he would seem stripped of wealth and power. We sit across from each other, separated by reinforced glass, speaking through mounted telephones. "Why did you come?" he asks, voice hoarse from disuse. To answer the question you've been asking yourself, how you missed something in your perfect plan. His eyes narrow, some spark of his former self flaring. Briefly, "You fabricated evidence." I smile slightly. "No, I simply revealed what was already there. The evidence you created while framing me." "I loved her," he says suddenly, desperately. "She made me do it. The whole thing was Maya's idea." I study him with clinical detachment, the man I once trusted completely, built a company with, considered family, now reduced to blaming others for his downfall. "I know," I reply. "I counted on that weakness." His expression shifts. Confusion replacing defiance. "What do you mean?" Maya approached the prosecutor with a plea deal 3 days after your arrest. Offered complete cooperation in exchange for reduced charges. Everything she knew about your methods, your contingency plans, your hidden accounts. Julian's face pales. She wouldn't. She did. Just as you tried to implicate her as the mastermind. You both betrayed each other exactly as I anticipated. I never imagined the satisfaction of this moment. Watching Julian realize the final component of his destruction came from the woman he betrayed me for. The complete collapse of everything he valued. Your first mistake was thinking I trusted you completely. I continue. I've been keeping receipts since college, Julian. Every inconsistency, every manipulation. I didn't have enough to act on until you framed me. But once you did, the pattern became clear. Julian stares at me with dawning comprehension. You engineered this. All of it. I engineered nothing. I simply revealed truth. The evidence was all yours. The fraud, the frame, the betrayal. I just made sure the right people saw it clearly. I stand to leave, having delivered the final piece of my revenge. The knowledge that his destruction was complete. That Maya had abandoned him just as thoroughly as they had abandoned me. Some debts can only be paid in full, Julian. I place the phone back in its cradle, turn without looking back. The architectural revenge complete in every detail, not built on fabrication or emotion, but on meticulous truth that Julian constructed himself. The quiet accountant he underestimated, the partner whose technical expertise he dismissed, the friend whose trust he betrayed. In the end, those were the very qualities that destroyed him. 6 months after my prison visit to Julian, my life has transformed completely. Our investment firm rebounds stronger than before. New clients attracted by media coverage of the fraud case and my role in exposing it. My technical expertise now celebrated rather than hidden behind Julian's charm. I've been asked to speak at financial security conferences, write articles on fraud detection, consult with regulatory agencies on strengthening protection systems. The quiet accountant Julian dismissed as unmarketable now in demand precisely for those skills. The firm's remaining partners elevated me to managing partner. The corner office once occupied by Julian, now mine. The view of the city skyline, a daily reminder of how completely the tables have turned. I didn't expect success would be the most satisfying revenge. How reclaiming my professional reputation would heal wounds I thought permanent. How justice would bring not just satisfaction but renewed purpose. My personal life remains deliberately minimal. Trust doesn't return easily after betrayal of that magnitude. I focus instead on rebuilding financial security systems, creating safeguards against the very methods Julian employed. Looking back, I'm amazed at how completely Julian and Maya miscalculated, how they underestimated the very qualities that made me valuable. My attention to detail, my pattern recognition, my methodical approach to complex problems. Julian's sentencing made national headlines. 30 years for securities fraud, embezzlement, obstruction of justice. No possibility of parole for at least 20. The judge cited his deliberate framing of his business partner as evidence of exceptional moral corruption. Maya received 7 years with potential early release for cooperation. Her testimony against Julian proved crucial in securing maximum sentencing. Their mutual betrayal, the final component of my revenge architecture. The prosecutor credits my financial forensics for building an airtight case. Mr. Chen's ability to trace money through complex systems was instrumental in exposing the truth, he tells reporters afterward. His expertise revealed patterns no one else could have detected. I never imagined professional validation would heal personal wounds. How recognition of my skills would counterbalance the betrayal that nearly destroyed me. 1 year after Julian's conviction, I received notification of an appeal filing. His new legal team claims evidence tampering, ineffective counsel, prosecutorial misconduct, standard desperate measures for a guilty man facing decades in prison. I review the appeal documentation with professional detachment. Find nothing concerning. The evidence against Julian wasn't fabricated or manipulated. It was simply revealed in its full context. Truth meticulously assembled from fragments he thought safely hidden. The appeals court unanimously rejects his petition 3 months later. The evidence too overwhelming. The financial forensics too precise. Julian's conviction stands without modification. I didn't anticipate the sense of finality this rejection would bring, the complete closure of a chapter that began with betrayal and ended with justice. Maya writes again from prison, claims to be finding redemption through counseling, spiritual awakening through adversity, asks forgiveness for her role in the conspiracy. I read her letter carefully. Note the calculated emotional appeals, the strategic religious references, the subtle attempt to establish correspondence that might support future parole hearings. Her manipulation techniques haven't changed, only adapted to her current circumstances. I file the letter without response. 18 months after conviction, Julian attempts to sell his story to publishers, a memoir claiming his innocence, portraying himself as victim of an elaborate revenge plot orchestrated by his jealous former partner. The publishing houses decline after legal review. The evidence against him too comprehensive to risk defamation claims, his narrative contradicted by court records, financial forensics, and his own earlier testimony. I never expected Julian's ability to reinvent reality would fail him so completely. How thoroughly documentation would trump charisma when subjected to legal scrutiny. 2 years into Julian's sentence, I receive an unusual request. The Federal Financial Crimes Task Force seeks my consultation on a new framework for detecting complex embezzlement schemes. They want me to review their proposed systems, identify potential vulnerabilities, suggest improvements based on my unique experience. The irony isn't lost on me. The methods Julian used to nearly destroy me now becoming the foundation for strengthening financial security nationwide. My understanding of those methods making me exceptionally qualified to prevent similar crimes. I accept the consultancy, apply the same methodical approach that exposed Julian's fraud to identifying systemic vulnerabilities. My reputation grows beyond investment circles to regulatory agencies and financial security systems. Looking back, I'm struck by how completely defeat transformed into victory, how loss became the catalyst for greater success, how betrayal led to opportunities I might never have discovered otherwise. 3 years after Julian's conviction, Maya becomes eligible for parole. Her hearing includes extensive character testimony, claims of rehabilitation, expressions of remorse. She receives approval based on model prisoner behavior and continued cooperation with ongoing financial crime investigations. I make no attempt to influence the parole decision. Justice has been served according to the legal system. My personal revenge architecture complete regardless of her incarceration status. The day before Maya's release, I receive a final letter. Different from previous communications. No manipulative undertones, no strategic positioning. Simple acknowledgement of harm caused. Recognition that some actions cannot be undone. For the first time, I sense genuine remorse rather than calculated performance. The difference subtle but significant to someone who studied her patterns for years. I still offer no response. Some bridges remain permanently burned. Some betrayals beyond reconciliation. 5 years after Julian's conviction, I visit him again. Not from sentiment or closure, but to observe the transformation of the man who once controlled our shared destiny. The charismatic partner who built our business on charm while I handled boring details now diminished beyond recognition. Institutional routine replacing designer spontaneity. Rigid schedules confining the man who once dominated rooms through sheer force of personality. We sit across from each other, separated by reinforced glass, speaking through mounted telephones. "Why come back now?" he asks, voice rough from disuse. "Professional curiosity," I reply honestly. "I wanted to see if you still believe your own narrative." Julian studies me with remnants of his former intensity. "You destroyed my life." "No, you destroyed your own life. I simply ensured you couldn't destroy mine in the process." I didn't expect the calm certainty these words would carry, the complete absence of anger or satisfaction, the pure factual clarity of truth, finally spoken aloud. "I could have given you everything," Julian says after a long pause. "Partnership, success. Maya chose me because I was stronger, because I took what I wanted." I study him with clinical detachment, still believing in his superiority even from behind prison glass, still constructing narratives where he remains the hero regardless of evidence. Maya chose a fantasy, I correct him, one that collapsed under reality, just like your fraud collapsed under financial forensics. Julian's expression hardens. I'll be out eventually. Things can always change. Yes, they can. I allow myself a slight smile. Which is why I've established financial security. Protocols at 17 major institutions based on your specific methods. Your exact techniques, now textbook examples in fraud prevention courses nationwide. His face pales as understanding dawns. His legacy permanently transformed from brilliant financier to case study in criminal methodology. His methods not just exposed but institutionalized as warnings in the very systems he once manipulated. Your first mistake was thinking I trusted you completely, I tell him as I stand to leave. Your final mistake was underestimating what I'd become once that trust was broken. I place the phone back in its cradle, turn without looking back. The man who once dominated my professional and personal world, now reduced to a cautionary example in financial security training. I walk out of the prison into clear autumn sunlight, free in ways Julian never will be again. My revenge complete not through destruction, but through transformation. The quiet accountant he betrayed now recognized precisely for the qualities he dismissed. Some debts can only be paid in full.